In this video, we continue with our narration of William Walker Atkinson's Practical Mental Influence and Mental Fascination. In the immediately preceding video, Chapter 8, we covered influencing at a distance, including exerting mental influence upon others at a distance, how the mental currents flow to a distance, how distant treatments are given, the occult practices are given, a number of the most effective methods are given, with particulars of practice. This will be Chapter 9, Influencing and Masse. But before continuing, if you have not yet subscribed to this Varan Q Rama Taraki channel, then please pause the video right now and to do it. While you're at it, activate the notification bell feature. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumb up. You are invited to comment below, courteously. Share the joy of the channel with others. And now moving on. Chapter 9, Influencing and Masse. We'll cover how mental influence may be used to affect great numbers of people at the same time, how the great men of politics, business, and professional life manifest this form of mental influence, and valuable information in a nutshell. The preceding chapter concluded with, before practicing any of these experiments, read what we have said in the chapter on magic black and white, and guard against employing the power for evil purposes, for the fate of the black magician is a sad one. Chapter 9, Influencing and Masse. In our last chapter, we considered the manifestation of mental influence at a distance, insofar as was concerned the influencing of one or more persons by another. There is another phase of the subject which must not be overlooked. That is the influencing of large numbers of people by some active, strong projector of mental influence. This form of manifestation of the power is known as mental influencing and masse. And mass, of course, means in a body or in a crowd. And mental influencing and masse means the use of the influence in the phase of exerting a strong, attracting, or directing power to the mind of the crowd, or rather, the public. A large number of people. This form of the use of the power is that consciously or unconsciously exerted by the great leaders of men in the fields of statesmanship, politics, business, finance, or military life. You will at once recall a number of the so-called great men of history, from ancient times down to our own times, who seemed to exert a wonderfully, almost miraculous effect upon the minds of people, causing men to see things through the eyes of the strong man, and making of all instruments to carry out the ideals, will, or desires of these great masters of mental influence. And on a smaller scale are the majority of the successful people who depend upon public support. In fact, this influence in some degree is used by nearly all who succeed in any form of business or profession, in which success calls for the attracting of other people toward the occupation of the person in question. This may seem like a strange thought to many, but it is known to occultists as a truth, notwithstanding. The most common form of influencing en masse is the lesser degree manifestation along unconscious lines, manifested by the majority of people by reason of their desire for the success. By desire, we do not mean the mere wanting or wishing state of mind, but rather that eager, longing, craving, demanding mental state that evinces a hungry reaching out for the desired thing. You will notice that the men and women who get things are generally those who are possessed of a strong, burning desire for the things in question, which prompts them to be more or less aggressive in the search for satisfaction of the desire possessing them. These people are constantly sending out strong waves of thought vibrations, which has a drawing, attracting influence upon all with whom they come into contact, tending to draw such persons toward the center of attraction, which, of course, is the mind of the person sending out such thoughts. And in the same way, a person possessed of a strong fear of a thing will send out similar attracting waves, which have a tendency to attract or draw to him the people calculated to bring about the materialization of the thing feared. This may sound paradoxical, but the secret lies in the fact that in both cases, the fear and the desire, in both cases, the mind forms the mental image, which tends to become materialized. Fear, after all, is a form of expectation, which, alas, often too tends to materialize itself. The thing that I have feared hath come upon me, says Job. And in that saying, he has stated the experience of the race. The way to fight things you may fear is to create a burning desire for the opposite thing. Other persons who have either studied the principles of mental influence or else have stumbled upon certain facts concerning the same improve upon this elementary form of influencing in Masse just mentioned. They send out the thought waves consciously and deliberately, erecting the mental image and holding strongly to it, so that in time their sweeps of mental currents reach further and further away and bring a greater number of people under the influence and into the field of attraction. They treat the public en masse by holding the strong mental picture of that which they desire and then sending out strong thought currents of desire in all directions, willing that those coming within their radius shall be attracted toward the person and toward the ideas expressed in the mental image projected in all directions. The constant dwelling upon some special object or subject by men who have developed concentration, strong wills, and fixity of purpose has the effect of sending out from the mind of that person great circles, constantly widening, of thought waves which sweep ever outward like waves in a pond caused by the dropping in of a stone. These waves reach and affect a great number of people and interest them in the subject upon which the person is thinking. This, kept up day after day, with the force inherent in a strong centered mind, will in time affect a great number of people and will render them at least interested in the object or subject thought of. And the indifference has been overcome. Other appeals to the minds of these people will be far more likely to reach them than otherwise. For interest is the first step toward attention. And attention is another step toward action. Of course. There are very many people sending out circles of thought waves, and these currents come in contact with each other and tend to neutralize each. But now and then, excuse me, a particularly strong man will send out waves that will persist even after meeting other currents and will reach the minds of the public in spite of the opposition. These thought currents have the personality of the sender and reflect the character of his will, be it strong or weak. The mental influence sent out by a strong businessman in a town will soon make itself felt in a subtle manner, and the store becomes a center of attractive influence, although the public does not understand just why. In the same way, some lawyers spring into public favor, although not possessing greater ability than their legal brethren. And popular preachers make their influence felt in a community in similar ways, although often they are not conscious of just what force they are using, their only knowledge being that they have a feeling of inward strength and an attractive influence over people, and at the same time a burning ardent desire to draw people their way and a strong will to back it up with. And these are just the mental qualities which create and manifest the strongest kind of mental influence. And besides, these people almost invariably know just what they want. There's no mere vague wishing about them. They make a clear mental picture of the things that they wish to bring about, and then they bend every effort toward materializing the picture. Everything they do towards accomplishing their ends gives an additional impetus to their constantly widening and constantly strengthening circle of power and influence. Some masters of this art of influencing the public create a mental picture of themselves, sending out great volumes of thought waves for a time, and then afterward mentally imparting a rotary motion to the waves, until at last they form a mental whirlpool, rushing around and always sucking in toward the center. An effort of this kind acts on the mental plane just as a physical whirlpool acts on the physical plane. That is, it draws into its power all that comes in contact with its force. This is one of the most powerful forms of influencing en masse, and is used with great effect by many of the strong men of this age, who have acquainted themselves fully with the secrets of the ancient occultists. Ancient occultism and modern finance seem far apart, but they are really working together to further the interests of some of these powerful minds of the day, and the public is paying the bill. You will readily see from what has been said that an individual who has cultivated the faculty of concentration and has acquired the art of creating sharp, clear, strong mental images, and who, when engaged in an undertaking, will so charge his mind with the idea of success, will be bound to become an attracting center. And if such an individual will keep his mental picture ever in his mind, even though it be in the background of his mind, when he is attending to the details and the planning of his affairs, if he will give his mental picture a prominent place in his mental gallery, taking a frequent glance at it, and using his will upon it to create new scenes of actual success, he will create for himself a center of radiating thought that will surely be felt by those coming within its field of influence. Such a man frequently sees people coming to him and his enterprises, falling into line with his plans. He mentally sees money flowing into him and all of his plans working out right. In short, he mentally imagines each step of his plans a little ahead of the time for their execution, and he concentrates forcibly and earnestly upon them. It's astonishing to witness how events, people, circumstances, and things seem to move in place in actual life, as if urged by some mighty power to serve to materialize the conditions so imagined and imaged in the mind of the man. But understood, there's got to be active mental effort behind the imaging. Daydreamers do not materialize thought. They merely dissipate energy. The man who converts thought into activity and a material being throws energy into the task and puts forth his willpower through the picture on the slide. With the rays of the will, there will be no picture projected, no matter how beautifully the imagination has pictured it. Thought pictured in mental images and then vitalized by the force of the desire and will tended to objectify themselves in the material being. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. So let me repeat that. With the rays of the will, there will be no picture projected. But I believe that's supposed to say without. We'll see how that works. That might be an error here, a typo, or an oversight of proofreading. It says, with the rays of the will, there will be no picture projected. That is contradictory to everything else about this entire affair. With the rays of the will, there will be no picture projected, no matter how beautifully the imagination has pictured it. Thought pictured in mental images and then vitalized by the force of the desire and will tend to objectify themselves. No. It must be, excuse me for this, but I was reading as is here. Without the rays, here's our correction, okay? Without the rays of the will, there will be no picture projected. No matter how beautifully the imagination has pictured it. Thought pictured in mental images and then vitalized by the force of the desire and will tend to objectify themselves into material being. That is the whole thing in a nutshell. Chapter 10 will be the need of the knowledge, covering the need of this instruction on the part of the public, how the force is being used against people, and why they should learn to protect themselves by learning the principles of the subject, the good and the bad features of mental influence. And ignorance is no protection. The chapter, again, being number 10, the need of the knowledge, begins with. Although the true scientific principles underlying the subject of mental influence have been but recently, recognized and taught to the general public, still the knowledge is far from being new. But that's for the next video. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumb up. You can do that right now. You can even still, just before the end of this video, pause it to subscribe to the channel. And while you're doing it, activate the notification bell feature. Remember to give the video a thumb up if you like it. Comment courteously below and share the joy of this channel with others. And remember, this is all right here on Thuranki Armantaraka. I'm Turk Strawman. See you in the next video. Be well.